1, the addition property. 2.1, the addition property is solving an equation by adding or subtracting. Now I know that you can probably solve these in your head, but I want to show you the proper way that equations are solved. So if we look at this is saying what minus 6 equals 8. The proper way to solve an addition or subtraction equation is to do the opposite or the inverse additive of the problem. So take away the variable and you look at the negative 6. Minus 6 and negative 6 are the exact same thing. Now you ask yourself, what would you do to negative 6 to get rid of it? For example, I wanted to make negative 6 a 0. You would do its opposite. Negative 6, the opposite of negative 6 is positive 6. The golden rule of equations, what you do to one side, you must do to the other. And now these have canceled out because a negative 6 plus 6 equals 0. Equal sign comes down. What's 8 plus 6? 14. And then your x comes down. And that is how you always solve a one-step adding or subtraction problem. Let's look at another one. Now this one, you're actually going to be moving your variables. I only have one whole number, but I have a variable on each side. Remember, in any equation, your goal is to get your variable by itself or isolate your variable. Now, in this problem, I want to move the smallest variable. However, you also should understand that if you have a variable by itself, that has to stay there. You can't move the 3x. So I need to move the 2x. Just like we did up here, we do the opposite. What's the opposite of a positive 2x? Minus 2x. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. So now I have 3x minus 2x, which is 1x, or just x. These two have canceled each other out, and I have 1 left over. So x equals 1. Now this one's a little tricky. (6z equals 7z). If you subtract the smallest variable, minus 6z, from both sides, what happens when you have 6z minus 6z? Well, they cancel each other out, but what does that actually equal to? It's equal to 0. 7 minus 6 is 1z, so z equals 0. So let's look at what happens when we have two different things on both sides. So just because there's two things on both sides doesn't mean we change what we do. I can add or subtract variables, and I can add or subtract numbers. Now, it doesn't matter which one you do. There are 4 ways you can do this problem. However, there's an easier way to do it, because if you do it a specific way, you can most of the time avoid negatives. And honestly, negatives can really screw you up right now because you're not very good with them and you're not comfortable with them. So the first thing you want to do is look at your variables. I have a 7x and I have a 6x. Which is my smallest variable? 6x. So that's what you want to get rid of. So in order to get rid of a positive 6x, you would subtract 6x from both sides. Remember, we have to put them with like terms. So x's go with x's. So now what has happened here is that equals 0. Let's go ahead and bring that down so you can see that actually cancel each other out. 7x minus 6x is 1x plus 4. So basically, I now have x plus 4 equals 0 plus 7 is 7. When you have a 0 pair, they cancel each other out unless they're by themselves, like the previous problem. Now I only have to move my number because my variable is already by itself. So I subtract 4 from both sides. And I get x equals 7 minus 4 is 3. Combine like terms on each side. Now let's go ahead and just cover this part up, the equal sign and everything behind it. If they're on the same side, they join forces. So they only do the opposite when they move on the other side of the equal sign. So over here, I have things that need to join up first. My x's need to combine and my whole numbers combine. So I have 8 and 5x. That is 13x. I have 9 plus 4, which is 13. That equals the rest of the other side. And now I can solve it like a normal equation. My smallest variable is 12. So I'm going to subtract 12x from both sides. 13 minus 12 is 1x. Plus 13 equals 4. Now I subtract 13 from both sides. And x equals... Now, what I'm doing over here is I'm combining these. 4 and negative 13. Who's going to win the fight? Negatives. By how much? 9. So my answer is negative 9. One more with distributive property. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is this distributive property. What's 2 times b? 2b plus what's 2 times 2? 4. Now, the negative in front of this distributive property means that you're taking the negative of each one inside. Or you can pretend that this is a 1 and multiply negative 1 times both of these. Negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. And negative 1 times b is negative 3. Now, on the same side, we join forces. What's 2b minus b? Well, remember there's a 1 in there. So 2 minus 1 is 1b. Now, what's a 4 and a negative 6? Who's going to win the fight? Negative by 2 equals negative 3. So now I need to add the 2 to both sides. And b equals negative 1.